Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Fundamentalists podcast. My name is Elliott Morgan, and I'm here with Peter Rollins. This is a podcast about the possibility of life before death. What? Is it even possible? Who knows? We'll find out. Also, we're adding a little something special to this episode for the first time ever. We're going to be answering a question after we have our discussion from one of our patrons from over at patreon.com/thefundamentalists. If you would like to join that wonderful cult of people, you can head on over to patreon.com/thefundamentalists. At any rate, we thank you for having us. We had an exciting episode for you today. We're talking about hangovers, something I have zero experience with. But first...
You just stay drunk all the time.
You can't get a hangover if you're always intoxicated. How are you doing, Pete?
Doing good. Doing well.
Yeah?
I was a bit hungover a few days ago.
That's what inspired the episode?
Yeah, you said, let's do an episode on that.
It just pops up. It's just that free rolling.
Yeah, it's because you don't want to think about ideas. Just whatever's in front of you.
Find a word.
That was it.
We have a master list of ideas that we do not look at.
I know. We did sit down and write an idea, but we haven't gone back to it. Yeah.
I think it's like once we write it down, it stops being exciting. I like to do it, off the fly. But how was the hangover?
Oh, hangover was lovely. I mean, what was lovely is I'm starting to do things a bit now. People feel like people are starting to venture out of their hibernation. But I ended up drinking and it felt fine. And then the next day, I'm getting old. I used to never get hangovers. And then it just hit me.
So describe, if you will, for me, Pete, your average hangover.
Yeah.
Or your most recent one, I guess, since they're not too common.
Yeah. It didn't feel like no headaches, no sickness, anything like that, but just feel kind of sluggish, tired. Yeah. Does feel like I've just put toxins in my body and my body's like trying to get rid of them. And sleep, dry mouth, not being able to sleep properly, that kind of thing. And I remember the days when I could drink, not feel bad, in the next day. And those days are gone.
When was that?
I don't know. Well, it feels like not that long ago, but probably maybe up until my late 30s, probably maybe into my early 40s was when I first started to get hangovers.
Good for you, man. Gosh, yeah. I was just in Vegas.
Maybe you hit it harder.
Might hit it hard. There's not a lot to do, and you can only play a game with tiny horses so long, and you can only lose so much of your money.
Yeah. So you put 3 red snakes on for me on the roulette, and none of them came up good.
I actually did 6 in a row.
Oh. So did I win a couple?
Nope, you won absolutely none of them.
Oh, wow.
It was red snake. It was because, so basically...
We better define red snake for people.
Absolutely, red snake
by the way, this is a surefire way to beat roulette.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's a life hack. It worked every time. It is a pattern that you do on roulette. I don't know if you guys are familiar with roulette, but it's basically... like a football field, and you put different pieces in different areas depending on where you think the little ball is going to land. And if you land on an even and you bet on even, you get it. If you bet on a specific number and you get it, you get even more money. And you can do red or black. So red snake is basically a formation around the table that looks like the curvature of a snake. It's a cute little adorable way to gamble.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to work 100% of the time. So
it is my retirement plan, so I was nervous when it wasn't working.
I know. Yeah, you should look into that.
Yeah.
Because
did you put you always put the rider on top? Did you do that?
I did. I should have put the saddle on, but I said I did clarify with you that you want true, pure red snake. Yeah. I always put the little saddle on the snake. I think it's cute. Yeah. That tends to help quite a bit. And then my fingers get a little piano play, and I just end up doing more. I didn't win a lot of money, if that isn't any indication. But Pete Venmoed me $45, and you were thinking that was $15 a bet because it's $1 per thing. And I did the minimum, making it 50 cents per square. Each time, I was like, this is unbelievable. I was like, I can't believe this. It's never failed. Yeah, it's never failed that many times in a row. And it usually, if you hit it, after failing a couple times, you make your money back. So it's fun. You can keep playing over and over and over again. That was for sure the most, the least amount of time I spent at any machine that wasn't a slot machine. I got to tell you about these new slot machines they got going on, though, dude.
Are they fun or not? I have done them once, but only for 10 minutes. I never really...
Yeah, have you done the 3D ones that they have now?
No.
You sit down, and it's like they...
I thought they're all 3D.
Yeah, they are 3-dimensional. But they made it so it's like a hologram now, and it pops out at you. So Ghostbusters has one, and you'll sit there, and you adjust your chair, and you adjust the 3D level on the little toggle, and then certain things will happen and it will pop out at you, and you have to use your hand to swipe through the air to get as many whatevers as possible.
Wow.
It's incredible. Wow. It's the stupidest thing and most mesmerizing thing ever. It was wonderful.
Is there any skill to it, or is it purely...
Absolutely not. Yeah. I think it's truly... No slot machine, I think, has any skill associated with it, besides walking away. That's
you do know there is a strategy for always winning roulette, which is you put $1 on red. If you lose, you double it. If you lose, you double it. You lose, you double it.
They have a name for that, don't they?
Is that right?
Yeah. There's some kind of name. It's like... Yeah,
the fool's bet or something.
Yeah.
The only thing that's required for it to work is an infinite amount of money.
Yeah,
but if you have that, then it's a sure. And there's an infinite level, like they'll let you bet with any amount over an infinite period of time, and then you'll never lose. But then you would never lose anything you bet.
Yeah, you would break even with your infinite amount of money. You'd just get infinite back.
Yes,
you wouldn't be profiting at all.
Well, you'd have a slightly smaller infinite. I don't know how that stuff works. I'm not a mathematician.
Yeah, I have tried that strategy before because I was like, oh, I'll just bet if you double it, and you'll eventually win. Yeah, no,
it's funny how eventually you lose 6 times in a row, and suddenly you're at like $500.
Yep, and then that hurts.
And then,
I bet it'll work this time. Trust the process. It was very fun. Hangovers ensued. I myself have, with the exception of this lovely cocktail, just stopped. I was like, okay, time to de-pickle myself a little bit, which has been nice. But the hangover thing, man, is enough to people who just don't drink or don't get into it, and way to go.
Yeah.
They're really saving themselves a hassle. My least favorite part about a hangover is, well, where do I begin? There is the not being able to sleep at night. That sucks because I love sleeping.
Yeah, sleeping's good.
One of my favorite things to do. And the headache after. But I experience, and this is kind of, I think, where we'll get into some stuff in this episode, and I don't typically experience this very much, deep anxiety. Emotional anxiety. Almost to the level of palpable guilt. Feeling bad boy. Bad boy did bad thing. And then I feel ashamed. I feel like, oh, how dare I? How dare I do that? I feel, why would I do this to myself? Future Elliott or past Elliott betrayed future Elliott.
Yeah. Do you feel anxious about what happened when you were drunk, or is it more guilt for some part of your past
Usually
self?
Guilt just for drinking. Like it's sometimes it's, you say stupid stuff when you've had too much to drink, and I'm not immune to that. But it's definitely it's a feeling. It's like a not even a. Oh man, I wish I hadn't done that or said that. It's like a,
yeah. Because that is, I was thinking whenever you said about hangovers, what could I talk about? And I said this to you before we hit play, that one of the interesting things is for some people, drinking silences a type of voice that's within them, a type of otherness is within them, and people feel less social anxiety, they have a good time, but then that comes back really hard the next day.
Yeah.
And so that it's almost like you take a drug to kind of quieten this voice, this something that's going on in the background, and it works. And then the next day, the return of the repressed, that comes back more.
What is that term's come up a couple times. Can you give me a refresher on what the return of the repressed is? Because if it's returning, how is it still repressed? Philosophy.
Well, yeah, and technically what Freud means by it is that the return of the repressed actually doesn't happen temporally. So it actually happens in the moment. So the repressed always returns, as in there's always something that takes its place or something that kind of hints at a repression. And because otherwise you would never know it was there. If something was repressed and there wasn't a return, there wasn't a symptom,
little clue,
then you wouldn't show. But what we repress always shows itself in some kind of way. So that's the return of the repressed.
Wish it didn't.
Yeah.
Wish it would just leave me alone. When you get hangovers, what do you do? What's your cure?
Just watching Netflix. That's what I did the other day. I was kind of like, I'm just not going to do anything all day, which is not unusual anyway. But
I order Subway usually in Netflix.
Oh yeah, Subway.
I watched this series called Dr. Death.
Okay.
This is completely unrelated, but Dr. Death is based on a true story about this doctor in Texas, surgeon, a back surgeon, and he would, out of I think 38 cases that he had, patients, he either maimed or killed 36 of them.
Wow.
And would like do it, and so this show has Alec Baldwin in it as like one of the doctors trying to take this guy down. Christian.
Oh, it's a movie, not a documentary.
It's both.
Oh,
they did both a documentary and a TV show. I've seen both of them. They both multiple episodes, a docuseries and TV, all on Peacock of all things. And
I've never even heard of Peacock. What's that?
It's like NBC's kind of streaming service, I guess. But the show is super cheesy and very over the top and not that good in terms of shows, in my opinion. Joshua Jackson from Mighty Ducks and Dawson's Creek plays Dr. Death. He's this egomaniacal, crazy person.
With a surname like that, you would wonder.
Joshua Jackson?
Yeah, Dr. Death.
Yeah.
If that's what he's called.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I guess that wasn't his real name.
No, that's very funny. That took me a second. I was too entrenched. I was having flashbacks of the operating room scenes. There's all these scenes in the show where he's in an operating room doing back surgery, and the way they shoot it is horrendous. Like it gave me it freaked me out about basically getting surgeries and stuff. And then we watched the documentary series, and it was even worse. And this guy's a total psychopath. And the whole point is, how did this guy, who clearly was just psycho, like total psycho, like God complex, like thought he was the greatest thing in the world, threatened everybody, ignored his patients, really thought he was doing a good job. Yeah, you might want to watch the docuseries, I think.
Yeah. So he thought he was doing a good job?
Supposedly, or he was just lying, but it was so, like, he would, okay, this gets a little gross or whatever. He would leave sponges in people.
Wow. That's just because there's a sketch where Mitchell and Webb, there's a doctor that leaves things, but like squeaky things in people so that they have squeaky sounds when they move their arms. That's more comedic. It was, and it was a sketch about this is becoming endemic within doctors' surgeries.
Yeah.
But this is like but he would leave. Oh shit. So,
He would do that, and then other times he would go in, do the surgery, pop something out, and he would be like, and I watched the show first, so I didn't know how much of it.
Did they not keep a list of stats, of how doctors are doing, and like that?
That's what the whole kind of they get into. They're kind of like, why is this allowed to? Who can keep doing this?
Yeah.
But he comes highly recommended. Every hospital he leaves highly recommends him, and then these doctors have to call and be like, "Are you for real? Like, is this guy lying? Did he do anything that you're not telling us about?" And it kind of goes into the medical boards of all these hospitals and kind of the greed and the corruption that happens. And it can get you a little paranoid if you're not careful. But at one point, he just pops this thing out of a guy's body, and he's like, "Oh, this is cancer. This is a tumor. We can't do this surgery. Put sew him up." And they sew him up. Come to find out, not a tumor. Part of his throat.
Oh.
Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
It's good to see you again, Pete.
Yep.
But basically, so many times during that show, he walks in and he's like, I got a hangover. He's like, I don't know, I got a hangover. I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. It's fine. I'm sorry. I'm a little hungover. Whatever. At one point, he's dating like a stripper, and she gets pregnant like 2 months into them dating. Sorry for all the spoilers. We should probably put a little bit of a spoilers ahead.
Listen, if he's called Dr. Death, I've got a feeling people are going to know where it's going to go. Yeah, they're not keeping anything a secret.
It's a smart audience.
Yeah. Oops. Spoilers. He does bad things.
He does bad things. His doctor does a bad thing. But he come in and says, and then the stripper gets pregnant, and he's like walking out the door, and he's like, I have surgery, and I'm just really hungover right now. And basically, he's doing all these drugs, he's drinking, and he's thinking this whole time that he's going to be both the world's greatest surgeon, and he's also going to do this breakthrough research in stem cells or something like that. It's very fascinating.
And is that based on any kind of reality, or is he lost in a kind of paranoid delusion?
It seems like paranoid delusion, but he tricks everybody.
Media.
He's got like a con man. It works for a while, apparently. He fools a lot of people. And worst part? Okay, here comes a real spoiler. This is crazy. Dude does surgery on his right-hand man, his best friend who's been with him for years. Pete, that gentleman is still a quadriplegic.
Oh, ooh.
Not even, can't move anything. Has to move around. And this guy now is going to spend the rest of his life in prison. He gets parole in like 2046 or something like that.
Wow.
At which point he'll be 76. Crazy times, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Maybe it would have been solved if he hadn't been drinking the entire time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Or maybe if he wasn't a psychopath. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's crazy. And, we've talked about it before, but for people who are psychotic, sometimes they're paranoid and they think they're the greatest thing, or they're depressed and they think they're the worst. Like, you go to those two extremes. They're either the antagonism of their story and they think they're going to cure the world, they're going to save the world, that they're some sort of messiah, or that they're some sort of devil, some sort of absolute outsider. But he obviously suffered from thinking he was...
Yeah, the other one.
The other one, yeah.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. So anyway... Back to hangovers.
Yeah.
Here's what I have to say about him, and then we'll move on to maybe a question or two.
Oh yeah, well, I've got a couple of things.
Okay.
Because I did say to you, I don't know if I've got much to say, but then once we have a drink,
you could see me trying to carry it. I was like, I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I was like, I got something to say.
Yeah. Well, so here is something I was thinking about, but it's more so, what is? There's really interesting. What is a human subject? What is it? What is it? Not just the ego, but what is subjectivity? And one of the things in psychoanalysis...
What is consciousness?
What is consciousness, yes.
What's going on there?
Yeah. And
who has it, who don't?
Yeah. And one of the things about psychoanalysis is the idea that we are infused with other people's desires and other people's beliefs and ideas. So it's not just that I am transparent to myself and I know what I desire, but we also have other people's desires within us from when we're really young. An example of this I was thinking about this morning. I was doing something this morning, and I remember a friend of mine was always missing the train when he came up to visit me when I lived in Connecticut. He would always, something would go wrong, and he would get the wrong train, misread the timetable, forget his phone, so he couldn't call me to tell me he was coming up. And this happened about 3 times in a row. And the third time it happened, he was like, "Oh, you think I'm incompetent or whatever." And I suddenly realized, because I know the guy very well, and I'm like, oh, well, it's a few levels to this. One is you think you're incompetent, you think you can't do anything, and you haven't been able to kind of integrate that idea, so you're putting that onto me, and you're getting me to think what you think of yourself. So what it told me was, oh, you think you're doing stuff that makes it look like you can't function in society.
Just little old me, just old incompetent me.
Yes, and so that was a part of him that he carried. But then when we talked about it, you see that wasn't actually something he even thought about himself. It was what he felt his parents thought about him, and his father in particular thought about him. So he was infused with this desire of the other and these emotions of the other that he was holding, that were alien to him, that he wasn't even aware of, that he was putting on me. And then it goes even further, because actually his father feels very incompetent and insecure and low self-esteem. And so it's not that his father was judging him, but his father himself felt that he could never live up to something. He felt this. So what had happened is a desire that was infused within his father got infused within him in a way that he was disavowed. So this other was speaking in him and speaking through him, through his actions. And alcohol and drugs, I think for a lot of people, get rid of that desire of the other that's always getting in the way and judging you and making you feel bad. When you drink, you can kind of temporarily stop the voice of that other, which is why we drink sometimes. But then the next day, that otherness comes back. And so whenever you talked about this guilt, my first thought is, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what other desire, what's that connected to with your past, that kind of drinking probably completely gets rid of, but then the next day it comes up in a much more audible way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's what most drugs do. Is that for neurotics anyway, it's an attempt to go, I need to silence these other voices and other desires that are kind of always seemingly getting in the way. I mean, you don't have that very much. But I think some people who feel socially anxious, they drink, they get rid of that, and then it comes back.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm not neurotic. I'm a Pisces, and so how dare you? But also, please like me. And yeah, dude, that I was just as you were talking, I was like, oh, it was like one of those things where I was like, I hate when this happens. When you tell a story about some friend, that I don't know, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm kind of like that too, I guess. I guess I've had that experience. So, for example, a very light version of this was there was a moment on my trip in Vegas where I got very upset with myself. And it's arguably the dumbest thing I could have been upset about. And I was kind of like, I'm generally a pretty happy-go-lucky guy, I think, most of the time. Like to have a nice time, and I don't get down too much. But this like knocked me off my rocker a little bit, where it was Saturday night, and at this wonderful trip, I had specifically planned for one like fun night of the trip. And it was going to be at a Penn and Teller show.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking magic, comedy, Vegas. Hello. Yeah. I mean, that's the holy trinity for me. That's going to be so much fun. So I go to get the tickets. There's no tickets there. And I'm like, well, the tickets aren't loading. That's weird. And it's like, if your tickets aren't loading, we'll click right here. And I was like, all right, I'll click right there. And I clicked it. Page didn't load. And then I was like swiping through my emails, and I had missed an email from like a week ago. That was like, due to unforeseen circumstances, Penn and Teller has been canceled for this following week. I was massively disappointed.
So had you bought the tickets?
Oh, yeah. I bought tickets.
Okay.
And it was like an hour before the show, all dressed up, ready to go. Can't wait to see Penn and Teller. Been looking forward to it all day. Yada, yada, yada. And then, yeah, as you were talking, I had that thought of like, I don't think I was unconsciously trying to not go to Penn and Teller because I would know that. I definitely, however, there was a little bit of like that, dang, like I'm trying to make plans, but I can't seem to make plans. And then that anxiety of sort of like wanting to do things and then not being able to get the ball rolling or something happening that stops it. So it's almost like a swimming upstream kind of feeling. Yeah, there's something there. It's nice.
That's it. Yeah, I mean,
and it all worked out, by the way. We just went and bet on horses and got dressed up. It was really fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw the pictures. He's looked great.
Yes. Penn and Teller were supposed to make me look right.
They were supposed to enjoy that look. This is the weird thing where we almost replay the myths of our past and our parents' past. So what my friend was doing was he was restaging a play that was within his past, and actually not even within his past, but his dad's past.
You know, they have a term for this in Jungian psychology.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you want to know what it is?
Go for it.
You're going to believe it. Archetypes. Archetypal patterns specifically. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's different because archetypal patterns are universal patterns.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
This would be mythic pattern.
Well, I'm talking about a very personal myth of the story of the family.
No, it's not archetype. No.
Yeah, but yes, either way, yeah, the really weird thing is
you repeat these things over and over.
And we don't even realize it, and then we get other people to play the parts or even things to play the parts. So it doesn't have to be a person. I was being made into the father figure, but some inanimate object can maybe be that as well.
Did you tell him that?
Over time, you know.
Waited a little bit?
Yeah.
You've made me your father.
Mostly I was just pissed off that he was always late for me for the train. So, but you know what? The funny thing is, and he would say this, is we did talk a lot about it and this structure that he plays out. And as he was able to put it into language, and as he was able to see the play out, he stopped doing things that were self-sabotaging. And like he would do things that would make him look like incompetent or whatever. Like, here's a very funny example of something. He phones me up because he says to me, Pete, you need to get some tickets to this comedy show I want to go to. So can you go down to the place and buy the tickets? I'm really sorry I can't get them, but you can buy them. I'll pay you back or whatever. I'm like, what do you mean go down to the show? It's like, you can buy tickets online.
I would be like, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah, but that's exactly it.
You want me to what?
Yeah.
You want me to leave my home?
Yeah, he'd be like, leave your home. That's
to
another
physically go buy tickets like you're in the 1940s.
Well, that's it. He had literally put himself back to when he was a kid, pre the internet.
Oh wow, that's great. That's
and
great.
had forgotten, like literally forgotten that you could buy tickets on the internet. And so it wasn't just a.
Is your friend not that bright?
Well, that's the funny thing about when we play these plays out. We do the craziest shit. Craziest shit. That's, So he's bought tickets all the time, I'm sure, online. But it's like, oh, you're putting me in the position of, a father figure to go out and do this. But plus also, oh, I can't do this. I'm incompetent. But as soon as I pointed it out, he was like, oh yeah. But it was Wilfred Bion talks about what's called beta elements. And a beta element is something, an unsymbolizable trauma in your life. Something happens, it's too much. It's maybe pre-symbolic, so you as a child can't put it into words. It's a sense of which there's just a too muchness, and you feel you're falling apart.
You haven't been able to articulate it in any way.
Yeah. And then the role of the parent for Bion is he calls it an alpha function, which is to take that beta element, that unspoken thing that is kind of distorting your life, and start to help you put it into words. And so he uses beta element and alpha function. So what you can say is the role of the parent is to alphabeticize the experience, to put it into the alphabet, to put it into words.
Love that.
And as my friend was alphabeticizing the experience, the bad symptoms started to disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Became conscious and became
and kind of like and he kind of saw
articulatable.
And it's still a rock of like, that's the trauma. So you never get rid of that. That kind of defines him, but you know how to navigate it, work it. It no longer becomes a trauma and a problem. But I think, again, he used to drink a lot. He doesn't drink at all now, but he used to, and a lot of it was to get rid of that overwhelming judgment, this external desire that had internalized within him, that he would never amount to anything, and he had these problems. They were internalized, and so he drank and drank and drank because it was the only way to temporarily get rid of that otherness that was within himself.
Yeah, I have a theory that alcohol really does fix everything.
Yeah.
It's just the hangover and the being sober. We have to clean up all the pieces.
Is this where we say about our sponsor?
Absolutely.
The gin sponsor. This episode is brought to you by...
incredible. I wish. Oh my gosh.
Alcohol is the solution, and Jameson whiskey is sponsoring
Jameson whiskey is the
week.
most alcohol-y of them all.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Boy, to have sponsors, huh? What a time.
Oh, wow. We used to, remember the good old golden days when we had the wine sponsor?
We could still get the wine sponsor.
I know, that's true. We just stopped. I mean, technically...
we just didn't do it anymore.
We just stopped mentioning it.
You're like, I don't know. No, thank you. But that wasn't a good deal. But anyway. There's also a way to relate to hangovers through the shamanic tradition and the sort of spiritual inclination that people tend to have. And
okay, we'll just finish there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Don't forget Jameson whiskey. It's a lovely idea that basically you go through death, rebirth, and the death rebirth cycle happens all the time. It's ingrained in your brain, and you basically by getting alcohol in you, you're imbibing yourself with literal and figurative spirits. So you are becoming more than you think you are, or more than you actually are in your mind. It makes you into something that is not human without that sort of anxiety that you're talking about. You feel like you're this wonderful thing. That's the life part. And then the death part comes the next day. And so both parts are equally a part of a drinker's habit. Both parts are necessary. If you drank all the time and you didn't have a hangover, you potentially wouldn't want to drink.
Very good.
And that's that.
Yeah. And that connects with, there's a guy, name escapes me for a second, it'll come back to me. He wrote a book called The Accursed Share. And he talks about how in a kind of society like our own. I know you're hearing my
okay,
phone.
I was like, sorry. Keep
going.
No,
sorry, it's me. But I don't think anyone can hear it, bar us.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
But he talks about how in a society in which productivity and having to save and use your money and be productive in various ways is king. You have to have times in your life that are pure sacrifice. And this is where festivals and drunkenness and sacrifice come in. And religions have always been very good at it, actually, where you you destroy an animal and you don't eat it, you just destroy it. And then the idea of religious festivals are these festivals of exuberance that have no utilitarian value whatsoever, and that actually we need non-utilitarian, non-productive, ecstatic
revelry.
Yeah. And at the next day, it's you feel it, but actually you can't turn everything, which some people want to do. You can't turn everything into productivity. That's actually one of the funny things about drugs in LA, is that a lot of my friends who do drugs, they want to turn it into a productive venture. So it's not just having drugs to kind of like as a non-productive sacrificial event. It has to be to optimize you, to heal you from trauma, to kind of connect you with spirit. So there has to be this productive element. But the shamanistic thing, the little I know of it, it's like there's this beautiful kind of protest against productivity, a utilitarian kind of everything has to be life hacked.
Yeah. Don't bum me out. Don't bum me out by making it something that's gonna do something.
Yes, because then it gets woven into the very fabric of conservative society. Just like it's funny. It's like prostitution and drug taking are two of the oldest things to get illicit enjoyment, and prostitution is often a way in which there's a failure in sexual relationship and the person goes to a prostitute, but prostitution actually solidifies the relationship. So the person goes off, sleeps with a prostitute, pays for it, comes back to the family. So weirdly, it kind of sometimes can be seen to be something that doesn't always prop up the system, but sometimes it's the very gas release valve that allows the system to work. And so drugs,
I guess if you're like not a neurotic person or have a lack of some sort of, I don't know. Are you talking about someone who just has a family and like a wife and kids and then goes off and sees a prostitute?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to not have any kind of, scruples or anything. But I get it. Like you're saying, it's like I mean, I kind of get that with like the open relationships, that kind of thing. Yeah. People have those.
Yeah,
and I guess it's the same idea, but there's an exchange, and I don't know. It just feels like it's in my mind. There's no moral thing on it, but I would feel guilt because I would feel guilt.
Yeah.
So I guess that means for me it would be morally. I would be like,
yeah. I mean, for me, like polyamory is an attempt to. A lot of people I know who are polyamorous, it's an attempt to solve what they see as a problem within monogamy. And the problem within monogamy is a lack of triangulation. So a dyad kind of destroys desire, but if you open up the relationship, you keep desire going. But the truth is, monogamy has always had a triangular structure, triadic structure. So that's why people have kids generally. But even if you don't have kids, that's why there's somebody, there's a prostitute, or there's an affair, or so. And in most monogamy, there's usually a kind of known unknown. There's like unspoken rules. So sometimes I think. Definitely within Los Angeles, polyamory is trying to solve a problem that they see with the failure of monogamy, when monogamy is already a failure that has some solutions.
I think monogamy fails because of the fact that we're humans.
Oh, yeah. But we have to unpack that. You just can't say because we're humans. You have to say there's something in the nature of our desire that makes.
You're right. Penguins get divorced
desire.
Too. Penguins are monogamous and then they run away too. So it's not just us.
Is that right?
I'm sure that's what you're getting.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about penguins. Well, it's funny because our very notion of love comes from the French tradition of.
I thought you were going to say penguins. Yeah. It's funny that you say that. Our very notion of love comes from penguins.
Yep.
Well, thank you, penguins.
The study of penguins was very, very impactful. No, it's amour courtois, the courtly love of the French scholastic kind of tradition, where a knight would fall in love with a lady, and the lady would be married to a lord. So the lady was married to a lord, and the knight would fall for the lady would fall for the knight. But they couldn't be together because of the lord. And so the knight would dedicate his life to the lady and do all sorts of trials and tribulations and protection. And very little would happen between them. Often they would have no sexual union at all. And all
wink of an eye.
Wink of an, yes, that's right.
Grazing of a hand.
That's it. All the knight needed was a slight glance that would prevent him from falling into the void. It's very, very powerful. So this incredibly beautiful literature arose out of that, which is where our love tradition comes from. And then the English tradition tried to see how courtly love could work within a marriage relationship.
I thought you said Courtney Love first.
Yeah, yeah, Courtney Love. That's where our notion of love comes from.
Courtney Love and penguins. Yeah. The ultimate penguin.
Yeah, I think you've got the title for the podcast.
Yeah.
Courtney Love and penguins.
The ultimate penguin.
Or maybe our biggest hit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We'll finally hit the most specific niche market.
Yes. Which, by the way, just one thing on that, very quickly, is we've probably talked about this before, but that's why, like, often people who not suffer even, but have a kind of hysterical structure, they desire what they're jealous of. So if something has to be under threat of being taken away, whereas an obsessive desires what's impossible, what they can't have. So often in some relationships where two neurotic people are together, sometimes the only way they can keep their desire alive is to triangulate. And kids can be a way of doing that, you know. You create jealousy and impossibility.
That sort of outlet, that like a release valve kind of deal. Yeah. Hence the drinking, hence the revelry, the going crazy, the having a night where you just go, ah!
Yes, well, yeah. And although that at its worst is probably a way to avoid the beautiful failure of relationships. Oh yeah, because there's three basic pains in life. There's an internal suffering where you have a heart attack, external suffering like someone stabs you, and then the suffering of interrelations, of emotions. And drinking and drugs are usually, but not always, to do with the third.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs is to do with the failure of desire within couples and within friendships. It's a failure of desire. Drinking is a way to short circuit that temporarily. That's bad. But the occasional revelry, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, he said he didn't have a lot to say. But look at him go, folks. Yeah, dude, I think that's all very lovely. I had something to say about something you said, and I'm trying to remember what it was. But I got lost in the whole... First of all, it reminded me of Game of Thrones, I'll tell you that. Obviously, it's a night, you know.
Oh, yeah.
What's her name?
We did an episode on this on Eloise. Remember we talked about Abelard and Eloise? That's a type of courtly love where this philosopher and his student had this kind of like impossible relationship. Yeah.
Fascinating.
So, yeah.
And I mean, Freud and Jung were doing that crap all the time.
Yeah.
They were all over the place. Do you know why Cinderella is called Cinderella? You probably do.
I don't. It's because she was named that by her parents.
Her name's Ella.
Oh.
Yeah, she was. She had a loving, adoring. She had a loving, nice mother who died, and then the father remarried very quickly to a rather unsavory person who had daughters herself, and they all lived in the house. Took her bedroom and made Ella live down in the basement where the fireplace was, and her job was to take care of the fire. And so the one of the gifts that her mother gave her before she passed away was all of her books. And her stepmother threw everything out, but Ella was able to manage to hold on to her books, and so she would read them by the light of the fire, and also had to tend the fire, which was a constant task back in the day. You had to constantly get up because you had to constantly, and it was also dirty. So they got soot and ash from the cinders. So they gave her the nickname Cinderella to make fun of her.
Oh,
yeah,
that's great. I love that story.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's very
I'm
cool.
surprised you didn't know that.
Yeah, no.
I told that to Joe Beretta. I was like, you know why they call her Cinderella? And he was like, yeah, because the cinders. She was by the fireplace. I was like, what the?
Well, he's got kids. He's
maybe that.
read
the
story.
But I don't think he's reading like Grimm fairy tales. I don't think he's reading
that
the
stuff's
OG.
dark.
Yeah.
Was that a Grimm's fairy tale? Is it?
I don't know, but I mean, well, I think it was because I'm assuming it was because that's the original version. Yeah.
The only thing is, usually Grimm's fairy tales start dark and then end even darker.
Yeah, I mean, this, I guess, kind of starts nice, yeah. And if it starts nice,
and then it gets dark,
shit's gonna go bad real quick. Yeah. And then that's the one where, one sister cuts off her heel, the other cuts off the side of her foot to fit into the glass slipper. You know about all that?
Oh, no, is that the original?
Yeah, in the animated, she goes around, it's like, oh, your foot fits perfectly. But in the original, they literally cut their foot.
Oh, they cut their feet? Yeah, I do.
To make their,
yeah.
To fit into the glass slipper, which was originally in some Russian versions a fur slipper. and another was, it was a brass slipper. Anyway, this is about hangovers.
Yeah. We should do one on
I like when we just meander. I'm sorry. It's fun. I haven't
Yeah.
seen Pete in a little bit. Forgive me. We're having a good time.
And we do need to do an episode on this. I would like you to read this Levi-Strauss essay on myth, and then we could talk about it because it's very interesting.
Yeah.
That myths are basically constructed around contradictions and how they're resolved.
I'd love to.
Very interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, I bring it up because one of my classes is on the myths and folklore, fairy tales, and theater and film and all that, and sort of that kind of viewing them psychologically. And it was really just a fun class. Like it was super, super interesting to read so many fairy tales and think every time that I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of boring. And I was like, oh, like it really does something about those little, especially fairy tales, I think, distilling those stories into something so, simple was just like, it was wonderful. I was like, this is just so, it's constantly entertaining and surprising. And, there's always sort of that different versions of morality. Baba Yaga is a really good one. Baba Yaga.
I think I've just heard that name from John Wick.
Really?
No, I thought they called him. Who is the Baba Yaga or whatever?
Baba Yaga is a witch.
Okay, I think that's what. Well, is it a Russian fairy tale?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, I think unless I'm misremembering because it was years ago when I saw
Russian or German.
Right. Okay, because they said they called John Wick that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think so.
Oh, that makes total sense. Yeah. All right. You want to answer some questions, Pete?
All right. Let's go.
All right. So let's dive in.
There's only one, or is there two?
No, there's a few. Okay. Yeah. No, we're doing pretty well. Okay. All right. I'm going to throw one at you that you haven't read yet.
Oh, okay. Well.
Let me see. Okay, got it. That's a good call. I'm just reading. I'm sorry. I'm reading our patrons. All right, here we go.
This is fine for a podcast. Just dead air. Just take your time, man.
It's fine. Yeah, you're not going anywhere. I'd love to hear your thoughts on structuralism and post-structuralism, especially since Peter mentioned he studied post-structuralism but would consider himself a structuralist, and why.
Wow. Well, yeah, but that's a biggie.
That's a huge one.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah,
because I don't know.
Yeah. So structuralism. So I did my PhD in post-structuralism. That's kind of pretty much continental philosophy, post-structuralism. Structuralism is amazing. It's a way, and it's connected actually to this myth stuff. In fact, that's why I was saying read Levi-Strauss, because Levi-Strauss is a structuralist, one of the most important structuralists of the 20th century. Cool. He basically pioneered structural anthropology. And structuralism is basically a way of reading mythology and life and that finding underlying structures. It looks for underlying structures beneath our descriptions of reality, and it finds these. It attempts to find universal structures. And so, for example, when we're talking about what is the human subject, I'm a structuralist in terms of psychoanalysis, so I'm looking for these underlying structures that can help us understand what human subjectivity is. And even actually, if you think about it in a very basic way, that even when we're on Netflix and we're looking for a movie, there's an infinite variety of movies, but they can be broken down to comedy, action, horror. And, when we start thinking of, well, how in this infinite variety of movies can we break them down into these smaller things? That's it's almost like a version of structuralism. Yeah. Like going, well, these films have a structure that's similar, and so we call them a horror, and these have a structure that's similar. And so structuralism is going down to as basic as you can to find these structures. And then post-structuralism, which I'm influenced by, is always looking at how these structures are incomplete. Yeah.
None of them work totally.
Yes, yeah. And I'm trying to figure out why they're incomplete, like a science of understanding why structures are not totalizing, don't totalize the field. And, and I operate in the middle. Did that answer it at all? I don't know. That was
That's up to the person who asked it.
Yeah.
I think it did. First of all, I think it's a great description of structuralism. Post-structuralism being, it seems like You would just do that with structuralism. You would just, as a structuralist person, you would, if you found holes in it, you yourself would try to figure out why there's holes and make something work. Yeah. So I don't know why it needs a whole new category.
And structure, like taking a game of chess is a good example. So you got the pieces. That's, let's call it the imaginary. You've got the game, and you've got the kings and the bishops and the knights and all of that. That's at the level of like the myth, the story. But you can also, if I lose a piece, you can put a coin there. You can put anything you want on the place of the pawn or the bishop, as long as we agree that that's a bishop. So these figures are not necessary. And then you realize, well, what's necessary for the game of chess is a grammar, a grammatical structure. That's what the game is. And that's what structuralism is. It goes beneath of all, within language, there are relationships of difference and context, and everything gets its meaning from its relationship to other words. No word has an ultimate meaning. Every meaning is connected to other words. And then post-structuralism comes along and says, yes, and words don't even mean what the difference is all the way through. Differences, context is everything.
Yeah.
And so post-structuralism tries to push structuralism further.
Cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't fully understand.
Yeah, no, I mean, and structuralism, it's
heady stuff.
Yeah, heavy stuff.
It's hard to, yeah. All right, this is the final question of the day.
Okay, all right.
Now, this is for both of us, okay?
Okay,
Now, I'm going to ask you, and if there's dead air, we'll just edit it out, because we might have to think about it for a second. This is from Lauren.
Okay.
All right, Lauren asks, I'm curious about insecurities. What are yours? How do you cope? Can you overcome them? Could they be useful somehow? Do they only come from external expectations? Or if you're completely alone, would you still have them? I feel insecure even asking. LOL. That's very funny, Lauren.
You want to jump in first?
I can just riff for a second about my humble opinions on it. I think that absolutely. Let me bring it, because there's a few questions in here. What are my insecurities? We won't go into that. But how I cope with my insecurities. How do I cope with my insecurities? I really try to be nice and just demystify the idea of having insecurities and try to bring the volume down on having insecurities, because I think the very idea of an insecurity is based on the assumption that other people have it all figured out. And so you're just kind of comparing yourself. But if you're just like, you're doing your best, you keep it going. You give yourself.
You do that with alcohol. Basically, what he said, I turned down the insecurities by just drinking to excess.
That is not true. That happens on Fridays now, and maybe Thursdays.
You use meditation, actually. Seriously, you do.
Every now and then.
Oh, I thought you for a while you did that, like every day.
Yeah. I got bored.
Yeah.
It gets boring. I wasn't able to ascend to a new plane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I just try to, how do I cope with them? How do I cope with insecurity? Yeah, I think I just accept that they're there. And I just go, I think this is going on. And then if I pay attention to my behavior, I can see the insecurities going, that's just me being insecure. I have a problem, I think, insecurity-wise, sometimes being not angry, but forceful. And so I have a tendency to not get rolled over, but just sort of go with the flow too much. So that's an insecurity of mine. And I deal with it by going in the moment, trying to go, is this a time? And I try to just listen to all my faculties and go, is this a time where I need to actually be standing up for myself? Usually it's, I choose wrong. And I fly off the handle. And yeah, I think your insecurities are absolutely useful all the time. I think it's great. It's what makes you human. Do they only come from external expectations, or if you're completely alone, would you still have them? If I was completely alone, I would absolutely have insecurities. I hope they'd never go away. Pete, what's your answer?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Or reply.
Reply, yeah. And there's something you said there about, one of the things you were saying about how, like, I think you said the phrase something like, no one has it all figured out, or something like that. Because I have to think about the word insecurities, but one of the things that Lacan talks about, and we've talked about this before, is that anxieties and insecurities there's an underlying question behind it. And the question is, what does the other want from me? That we feel insecure because, and we, not consciously, you're not thinking this, but often whenever you see an insecurity, hidden behind that is a sense in which you don't know what society wants of you, or your partner wants of you, or your parents wanted of you.
It's literally insecurity.
Insecurity, yes, that's right. The lack of security. Yes, the lack of security in the desire of the other. It's like, what does the other desire? Where do I fit within the other's desire? And so often you'll find that's a very human question, is what does the other want from me? And I think the only way out of it is the existential realization that the other doesn't know what they want either. Like, without thinking about it, we think there is this other that kind of has the answer, that knows what we should do, and we feel insecure because how do I fit into society? I'm at this dinner party. What fork and spoon am I supposed to use? How am I supposed to speak? It's like the other has the answer.
The truth is however you want.
Whatever
spoon you want.
But that's the trick, actually.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, because see, if you try too hard to obey the rules, that's the evidence that you don't fit in. Because if you're in that environment, the people who know all the rules will break them.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're using everything correctly, that's a tell that you don't fit. But
or that you're insecure.
That you're insecure, and you're trying, because in a way there is a dividedness within everything. But so secure, I think anxiety in general is connected to this idea of what does the other want from me, and we can never fully answer that except to realize that the other doesn't know what it wants either.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great answer.
There you go.
What are your insecurities?
I've got none.
You may not. I don't know if you have many insecurities.
No, you know what I know about myself is terrible. A rare moment of honesty is I find it very hard to admit anything like that. It's not that I don't have insecurities. I just kind of like.
Wait a minute. Your insecurity is that you can't admit any insecurities?
Insecurity, yeah.
That makes you really shook up. That you can't admit any.
My trauma is whenever I have to talk about trauma. Actually, I was with some friends a while back, and they came around and they started talking about one of our friends, Daniel, who loves to talk about, kind of get people to open up. And he says, okay, talk about some sort of traumatic event.
Loves that. Yeah.
And I was like, this is my traumatic event, right? I'm living in it right now.
Go home.
Yes, you trying to make me talk about trauma is traumatic.
Yeah.
You know, I want to cut that out. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. And I admire that. He's trying to shortcut some kind of therapeutic process.
Which I love. Yeah. But my goodness, is it going to be hard with me?
Yeah. No, I want to just chill and have a nice time. And I don't care about that. Yeah, anyway. All right. Well, that was a great answer, Pete. This is a great podcast. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thank you. This is fun. All right. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys. If you would like to answer or have answered, your questions, you can go to patreon.com/thefundamentalists. If you would like to see videos of the podcast, you can go to youtube.com/Elliott Morgan. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Spotify. If you would like to leave us a review on iTunes, nice one, feel free to do that. If you want to leave us a mean one, you can just DM us on any of our social media platforms. We'd super appreciate it.
And if you have topics you would like us to discuss, either drop us a tweet or do whatever, because we're always looking for new things to talk about.
There you go.
Whatever.
That's it. Bye, folks.
Bye-bye.